I'm going to go ahead and get started with our first, which is diversity in dentistry and the MVA diversity policy. On Thursday evening, we are going to start off our board meeting with a board educational speaker with Dr. Todd Esther, who is the Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the University of Michigan School of Dentistry. Dr. Esther will be sharing information about diversity and inclusion in the dental education and dental profession. He is also highlighting U of M's Profiles for Success program that just is celebrating its 25th anniversary of being at the dental school. Many of you may be aware that I was a recipient of Going for Profiles to Success in 1999, and it helped springboard me into taking my DAT and getting into dental school. And it also showed me how a welcoming environment U of M could be for individuals of diverse background and getting diverse background into dentistry. Then on Friday, the board's generative discussion will be on the topic of diversity in dentistry. And we'll be looking at this topic from a number of perspectives, including demographics, patient care, organized dentistry, and leadership. Background information includes quite a few articles. Here are some highlights. The demographics of the population in dental profession do not align. The population is much more diverse than dentistry is. Big surprise there. The number of dental school graduates of minority background has increased in recent years, but most of this is due to the increase in the number of Asian graduates. Studies show that underrepresented minority dentists serve more patients of similar background to themselves than white dentists do, and the greater racial and ethnic diversity in the dental workforce is essential to providing high-quality care. And a recent JADA article also confirmed that diverse racial and ethnic groups were less likely than whites to receive annual dental examinations and other care, and that for individuals with disabilities, there were significant disparities. They were less likely to be examined and more likely to experience delays in care or even unable to attain needed care. And some of you may be aware that that's an issue near and dear to my heart. I was involved with Special Olympics Special Smiles for 15 years, and I could see the drastic disparities there. We'll also be discussing efforts to get more diverse individuals to consider dentistry as a career, and applying for dental schools have met with some success, but greater efforts will be needed to build on this success. Within organized dentistry, dentists of diverse backgrounds, and to a lesser degree, women, are less likely to be members. The MVA has seen some improvements in recent years, and we hope to continue this trend with our generative discussion. Concerning leadership, studies have shown that diversity on the board of directors has a strong positive impact on nonprofit governance. Finally, although there are many consultants out there that are trying to help organizations with diversity initiatives, a lot of these initiatives do not have a big impact. There are many barriers to this success. I am looking forward to the board's discussion on this diversity and inclusion and where the MVA can make improvements in this area. Next, we'll be going to talk about component work group report. Dr. Chris Gorecki.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me present on the component work group. I've had the privilege of being on the component work group since its inception in 2018. Then President Deb Peters ended up seeing that there is such a wide variability between all of the components, and how will the MDA be able to better support that and get that leadership and development and everything going so that the components can be supported better. So what the work group decided to do is conduct a survey of all the 26 components, and that through their leadership and through the work group, they saw that some of the biggest areas were recruiting component board members, getting members to come to meetings, increasing membership, sometimes even booking CE speakers. So the next thing, taking all of those survey results, since there is such a wide variety, the work group ended up coming up with some minimum component expectations. And there were three main areas that came up with the component expectations, and those are administrative, governance, and membership. Under the administrative aspects of the minimum expectations, there is basically the typical kind of business things that need to be maintained, like accurate membership records, administrative files, general liability insurances, workman's comp if you have employees. One of the important aspects to remember is that you have to, in terms of maintaining the nonprofit status, you have to file a Form 990 annually. So that would be under the administrative aspects. Then the governance is to have the bylaws and making sure that those are reviewed annually. That will give you the framework of what's happening at that component level and how you want to structure your component. So you can have the rules of how you elect your board, approve your appropriate policies, and the minimum expectation is that that board meet at least once a year. The third aspect under the component expectations is membership. And that is a very key element because obviously that's where the members find value at that component level. They find a lot of camaraderie and networking. So the membership, under that membership category, you need to have a collaborative plan to address member participation, mechanisms for welcoming and orienting new members, hold one or more member social and or continuing event, communicate regularly either with newsletters or e-newsletters, and to maintain a website. So the work group has established 4 resolutions that are going to be proposed to the Board of Trustees, and the first one is 757. And that one reads. Let me just so I have it read correctly. Is that resolved that the component expectations be approved as guidelines for the MVA component dental societies. So the next part of the work group, once you have those minimum expectations of what a component should be, is how will the MDA help to support that? And so that the work group came up with the component relations program. So what the component relations would actually do is the MDA would support the local components if they choose to by either, and there's a whole list of establishing standard bylaws. They could create a one-page component website. They would help and assist in quarterly newsletter, extend the CERP recognition for continuing ed, and a lot of other aspects, but one is to develop also a leadership roadshow, which would be able to foster leadership development at the component level. So once that component relations program comes into play, is how does the MDA end up supporting that? So the executive committee with Karen Burgess and the component work groups decided that in order to do that, some of those extra support could be absorbed by support staff, but basically it would be a very heavy burden if all of the components ended up utilizing all of those relations program. So one of the resolutions is that the MDA implement the proposed component relations program with existing staff and 1 additional full-time staff member to manage that initiative. So obviously this has a financial implication because a staff person at this level can be anywhere from 56,000 to I believe 72,000. So that's going to be a little bit of a discussion in regards to that. The one resolution before that, 758, is just at the component relations, obviously being taken care of by the MDA staff. So then moving on, the component work group said that if the components obviously are going through and still are having some issues, there's always a pathway or some type of issue of probably trying to combine or merge certain components. So they came up with, the work group ended up coming up with the component restructuring steps, and that goes with the last resolution that's being proposed to the board. And the restructuring steps are only there if two or more components decide that it'll be in their best interest to combine. And no one is forcing anybody on any of the components to combine at this time, but we're giving the ability that in the future, if anyone wanted to do that, there is the steps that can be followed. So, like I said, there's no existing component that is required to merge at this time. But if they do decide to merge and have some sharing of some of the administrative responsibilities, then one of the components could be technically called a branch, so that you could maintain your own autonomy. The issue with some of the components is that some of the geographical distances are just so large that you can't just all of a sudden merge and all of a sudden have a meeting like in Macomb on the east side of the state, where the northern thumb is 2.5 hours away. That just won't be able to happen. So the merge components would be able to adopt the name of one of the existing components. The bylaws change directly addresses combining the components, and that is what Resolution 760 is about. One other aspect, and the final aspect that I'd like to discuss, is the delegate question that comes up if the components were to merge. And what the work group decided to do is that that will be something that needs to be discussed at the board level, so that it's amicable to all of the parties involved how the delegate situation is going to be handled. So that is my report on the component work group. Obviously, a lot of aspects and a lot of work went into that, and the 4 resolutions that are going to be forwarded to the Board of Trustees. If there's obviously any questions later, they can be typed in, and I'd be happy to answer them. And if not, the next step is to see and to hear from Clayton Shunk. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. One of the items on our agenda will be the approval of a faculty awards program. This was brought up during a think tank session and was well received. A small work group of members and staff researched the idea and found it had merit. So after some discussion with current faculty members from the dental schools, guidelines for the faculty awards was developed. Faculty plays a vital role in shaping how the new dentist views the dental profession and the role the MDA has in their career. So it is appropriate that the MDA recognize faculty contributions. The MDA also has a separate faculty award for allied dental educators, so that everyone on the dental team is covered. This item is on our consent calendar. And the consent calendar is used to make our meetings more efficient. If no one wants to speak on the issue, it will pass with any other items on the consent calendar. Any board members can pull off an item if they wish to speak on it. So the faculty awards program is to recognize faculty, and we would use criteria that would be recommended from other people in the university, and that's essentially all we have. So next is Dr. Rhonda Hennessy.
Thank you, Clayton. I'm here to discuss a resolution 747, which is about a marketing proposal. Because it regards finances, it's not on the consent calendar and will be discussion for the board. There's a dental assisting work group called DOG, Dental Assisting Work Group, as we've attached an acronym for it. It was tasked to investigate and address the decline in registered dental assistants. This decline is placing a burden on the dentist office around the state and affecting their efficiency and their financial impact. As leaders of the dental team, and after consulting with the 8 registered dental schools, having interviews with them and sending out questionnaires and getting back. We reviewed the data, and we decided that there was possibly a necessity for a public awareness. So through the group, we thought the MDA does presently have a public awareness campaign, which has been very successful over the years. So following a presentation from our marketing group, the dog committee is endorsing a marketing proposal that will target the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades in the schools. It will have hopefully have a landing site that will they could go to the different dental schools. We're proposing to do this for 6 months so that we can track how these how the landing sites are doing and how this public awareness is going to build the dental assistants in Michigan. And I guess we ask questions at the end, so I will hand off to Karen Burgess for a discussion of the MDA app.
Thank you, Dr. Hennessy. So the MDA has been in discussions about the possibility of developing an app for its members since the original member success think tank. It actually had been tested very well with our members. Particularly the younger members are looking for the ease of kind of the Michigan Dental Association in their pocket. A work group was convened in order to look at the different options for creating an app. We have a very highly successful app for legislative activities through phone to action, so we know people will use an app. We have had a less successful app associated with our annual meeting, just in that a large number of people take advantage of the print materials as opposed to using an app on their phone. But the numbers there for many societies are growing. So we took a look at the workbook group took a look at the different opportunities. They had really hoped that we would be able to do things with the app that were transactional in nature, that affected you as a member and your record with our membership database. So it would be nice if you could update your record, or correct your address, or pay your dues, etc. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we learned that there was not going to be the ability to integrate with the membership database. But the work group agreed that it was still a good idea to move forward with this. So they did actually go to the executive committee at the EC's last meeting to ask for a very small amount of money so that they could move forward, particularly since this whole idea was very strongly supported by the board. So the EC has already agreed and funded the work group and the development of the app to no more than $5,000. And the board is being asked to simply ratify the EC decision. I will tell you that it is going ahead. I recently had to agree to an 83-page document to allow for the development of the app so that it could be made available through the Apple App Store. And that was a little daunting, 83 pages, but it is going forward. It's going to be extremely flexible, very attractive. We saw a mock-up of it, and there are a couple of other state societies that are using the same app that we're going to. So my expectation is that when we roll this out later this year, that our members are going to enjoy the opportunity and we'll get their feedback. So that is it on the MVA app.
Next is Dr. Todd Christie speaking on the update from the nominating.
I have the pleasure of presenting the information that's coming from the nominating committee from their last report. I want to touch on the top points that they have as well. And so we'll start off first. Obviously, they released their slate of candidates that you all received. back in January with notification of who the nominating committee is bringing forward to the House of Delegates. First, on the recruitment process. One of the big things to look at here, when you look at that report, they went through, and to complement the diversity of the board as well as the ADA delegation, they reached out to over 55 individual member dentists to encourage them to apply for one of the open leadership positions. There's many, as I say, many expressed interest, but it wasn't the right time in their life to apply. However, those individuals who were asked, they're going to continue in the coming years as well to contact them in the future to see when they're involved. The other part they point on here is an important point on here is that the MDA component dental societies need to be aware that their involvement is also very important in the recruitment process. And in the report that we're going to see from Dr. Deb Peters at the House of Delegates, she's going to urge that each component try to recruit at least one nominee per year for any of the leadership positions in the MDA. Second, we'll move through onto the trustee positions. Important to note here that if Drs. Mayhofer is elected president-elect and Dr. Knutson as secretary-treasurer, there will be 2 additional vacancies for 1-year terms as trustees. Currently, there are 5 candidates for the positions, but it's anticipated that the House will need to elect 1 trustee that has not been vetted by the nominating committee. The next opportunity to be considered for nomination is at the House of Delegates on our first meeting of the House on Thursday and on April 30th, and that'll be from the floor of the House. And I'll read this very specifically. Anyone interested in self-nominating from the floor of the House should contact Michelle Nichols-Cruz in advance for the information about the process and the paperwork required. As your speaker, I will tell you that additional information as your speaker, as well as the chair of the the election commission, that I intend to have this more information coming forward at both of the delegate digests, so you'll be able to click and learn more information to you. And the election commission is working as well in the short term here before we get to the House of Delegates. Next, I'm moving to the ADA delegation. Since the release of our slate of candidates, Dr. Lisa Knowles has resigned her candidacy for ADA delegation. So depending on with the 4 doctors who are running as to be elected as trustees, the slate will be short 1 position. So the House, again, may have an opportunity to elect 1 ADA delegation position that has not been vetted through the nominating committee. So again, let us know what's going on here if you're interested, so you can get more information regarding the ADA delegation. The next point they have is regarding the length of term for the editor and the speaker. This will be coming in the form of a resolution that will be coming to the House. What the nominating committee felt was that it believes that there is value in bringing forth a recommendation to the House to approve a 3-year term that is unlimited in number for both the roles of the speaker and the editor. So you'll be seeing that for your discussion and your evaluation. The last area they went through was in discussion of the NOMCOM, or the nominating committee guidelines. And so they're bringing the following changes to the House. One is more of a nomenclature regarding the selection of nominees. The committee believes that the word ballot should be removed from the guidelines to allow the committee flexibility on how they vote, whether they vote by general consent, show of hands, etc. When you make it a ballot, it has very specific implications. This allows them more flexibility to make the meeting run smoother. It's all about making it run smooth, but being efficient in their time. The second is in the duties of the chair. This one, the committee believes that the incoming chair should meet with the previous year's chair to review the nomination and selection process prior to the first meeting of the committee. So here you have the immediate past president meeting with the president as they exchange their roles going forward. And so with this one, it ensures that the incoming chair is current on the nomination and selection process. So that's what I have on the nominating committee guidelines and further update that's coming to you. I'm going to ask, and I think I'm going back to Miss Karen Burgess right now.
Yes, so thank you for introducing me, Dr. Christie. If only I had done the same for you. I have an update for you on our strategic planning process. We are in the final year of the strategic plan, which was 2016 to 2020. And the Board of Trustees will actually be doing a new strategic planning retreat on July 10th. So the February meeting is usually our big meeting for giving results from the previous year. So that's what the board is going to be looking at this time. And due to some technical issues with strategic plan PowerPoint, our moderator, Michelle Cruz, is going to be clicking through the slides for me. So if you hear me say next, it's because I'm asking her to please go to the next slide. So next, please. Our first goal on the current membership strategic plan is to deliver exceptional member value. Next. And I'm going to report that we've really seen some wonderful numbers here. For those of you who may have received our survey of the 2019 member opinion survey, we included the question on the Net Promoter Score, which businesses and industries across the country and around the world use. Michigan Dental Association, with some lagging people that came in and filled out the survey after I thought we were done. We originally had a Net Promoter Score of 48. It's actually inched its way up to 49, and just for a comparison, associations in general have an average Net Promoter Score of 21. So from the standpoint of would our members recommend us, the answer overwhelmingly is yes. We have a lot of people that say yes. I will tell you also that it's perfectly possible to get a negative Net Promoter Score. If the people who are detractors outnumber the people who are promoters, you can get a score of as low as negative 100. So thank heavens we don't have that situation, and I'm sure none of the dental societies do. Next. The strategies for getting that high Net Promoter Score, those positive scores, are multifold. You know, we are looking specifically at delivering value through CE for dentists and their dental teams, making sure that they're more likely to succeed in practice by providing practice management resources. And this year we're looking specifically at people who are towards the end of their career. And then we want to make sure to position dentistry and the MVA positively with legislators and the public. And the areas that had been identified within the strategic plan was the mid-level fight, public awareness campaign, teledentistry, and specialty recognition. Next. So let's take a look at annual session just to point out, I think when you look at this trend line, what you can see is that we have, despite all the work that we have done to try to increase the number of people coming, when we're looking at our total registration, our members, and the dental team participation, what you see is a pretty up and down kind of movement in terms of total numbers. Now, we did last year pull out all the stops for Detroit, dentistry in the D, you might remember, and we did see an uptick in the number of members who were attending, pretty flat in terms of the dental team, and then our overall participation was not as high as we would have liked, but still good. And I think it's interesting because I've had members tell me that it's unfortunate that our attendance is really declining. And I think you can see from this that it's not really declining. And we're also doing quite well from a revenue standpoint. But we, of course, do want to see more people there for a longer period of time and getting more value out of it. This year in 2020, you guys are probably aware that we have Frank Spear as a speaker. And we're doing a number of other things that are really impactful in terms of having a special time on the exhibit floor for member dentists only. We've got a VIP experience that you can sign up for. We're going to have free coffee in the Welcome Center. So I know that you guys are all going to enjoy that. And the result of everything that we're seeing for this year in Grand Rapids is that the total registration is up significantly, not only over Detroit and Lansing, but over the last time we were in Grand Rapids. So it is lining up to be an excellent meeting. Michelle, if you could turn the page to the next slide. Then when it comes to practice management resources, I don't know how many people on the call tonight are people who are over the age of 55. I will admit to being over 55 myself, but I'm not a dentist. But we've got a great new resource on our michigandental.org webpage where it's late stage practice resources. And this is going to be a living area where new information is going to be put up on an ongoing basis. We also have a practice management series guide called After 55, What's Next? And we've had quite a few people, even though both of these came out in October, we've had quite a few people who have visited this area of the website or downloaded our guide. In addition, you might be aware that we have the ADAPT program, and about half of the participants in the ADA Practice Transitions program are people who are interested in transitioning out of their practice ownership and moving on kind of eHarmony with a marriage counselor thrown in for dentists. Next. And there's my slide for practice transitions. So you can see it looks great, right? Next. Then when we get to position dentistry in the MVA, we are working on, now that the mid-level legislation passed, very much focusing on the rules and regulation for dental therapy in order to make it safe for the public, easy for the state to administer, and this is something that the MDA was influential in bringing forward ideas for the dental board to consider. Originally, we would have expected that these rules would become final within the next month or so. My understanding is at this point in time is that they are currently delayed, not because of anything on the public side, but something legislatively. We do have a work group on teledentistry, and the board recently passed guidelines that will help us advocate for appropriate rules and regulations for teledentistry. And the specialty recognition legislation, we're trying to get 3 of the 8 previously ADA, now commission recognized specialties, including dental public health, recognized in the state of Michigan. That specialty recognition legislation was introduced for us by Representative Ben Frederick on February 4th. We expect that to pass. Next, please. So that was our first goal that had to do with delivering member value. Now we're talking about the number of members. We want to see more members, more member participation. So Michelle, you can see here that our membership market share took a big upswing. Last year, we were very successful in getting to 77.1% of the dentists who are actively professionally, in other words, not the non-retirees. This was a great thing, and it took a lot of people working on it to make it happen. But you can see we've had some ups and downs, but this is a very strong market share when you consider that the average and the American Dental Association is below 65% at this point in time. So we're proud to be at 77.1, and we are the highest market share for a dental society our size. Next. This talks, one of our strategies, of course, is that we want to maintain a strong retention rate. I think what we see here is that there has been some variability. Our overall retention rate took a little bit of a dip last year, and we're evaluating why that is. You can see people who pay rate 1, the full dues, very, very strong retention. When you pay a different rate, it becomes more problematic. So, and for some of these groups, A, B, C, and D are in the reduced dues categories. Sometimes there's maybe 100 people in that category, so you can see just 3 or 4 people could make a huge difference. Next. We also focus on the 4 largest components, And you can see that much as the MVA saw positive gains last year, so did Detroit. Strong still in Macomb, even Stephen in Oakland, and Washtenaw took a big improvement as well. Both Detroit and Washtenaw, a lot of it had to do with the fact that the ADA matched our $0 dues rate for graduate students. So we took onboarded a lot of people who were residents in those two components. Next, please. We also want to focus in our strategic plan on underrepresented segments. And so, for example, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, we want to make sure that minority dentists are well represented in our membership participation. And you see here from the slide that this gives you all the way back to 2000 that we see ups and downs. This is all minority dentists, but in the most recent year, we saw a little uptick. We also thought it was important that our public awareness campaign reaches out and is inclusive of members of the public of various ethnicities, including a child with disability. Things like that are very important as well. And we also want to make sure that our leadership forum does a good job of incorporating messaging and helping all our MVA members feel that they can be a part of this vital leadership cadre. So our 2020 Leadership Forum is going to feature some information about diversity and inclusion, as well as a panel on diversity and inclusion that features leaders from the various ethnic dental organizations. Next, please. LGPDSO is also an area that we've been focusing on. Many more dentists are practicing in this practice setting. So we did an October think tank. We have a quantitative survey that has gone out and is about halfway done. I will give you the clue that the DSO dentists do not give us a 49 on our net promoter score. But the market share here in Michigan for LGP DSO docs is pretty high overall, although it does vary by organization. And the number one benefit that those dentists appreciate, just like our members overall, member service. Next. So those were the two long ones. Assuring organizational sustainability are really primarily our financial strategies and goals. So next, please. Here are the financial objectives and the strategies associated with it. We want to make sure that all our budgets are in the black and support our strategic plan. And that's the way it's written. We want a balanced budget or in the black, but more important, if there's ever a reason why we do need to pass a deficit budget, it should be for a good reason that supports the strategic plan. We recognize that it's important to do periodic small increases in dues rather than big ones. So you can see that we had a couple of fairly small increases in the last few years. We also recognize the importance of non-dues revenue, so the board wants us to monitor that. And what we found was that since this strategic plan's benchmark was set in 2015, the MVA's non-dues revenue has increased 17.7% since 2015. Some of the things we looked at this year to help fuel that was expanding our radiography program to other states. And also we went from our classifieds in the journal to an online job board so that we could expand the number of ads that we included to be for dental team as well. We also wanted to see positive investment returns compared to the benchmark, and I'm going to tell you, we did an awesome job, and if Dr. Shunk were giving this talk, I'm sure he would applaud all our work on this, because for 3 of the 4 funds that we invest in, our gross and net either equaled or exceeded the benchmark. And for our one that was a little bit under, it was a very conservative fund. So that's where we were with that. And our final goal is capacity, objectives, and strategies. Everything that Dr. Gorecki talked about in terms of component work group work absolutely supports the idea that we need a strong tripartite with strong components. And we've been working to enhance the board's strategic focus. I'm sure the board could speak to that. And also the MDA staff capacity. So that's supposed to be a quick roundup of our strategic plan initiatives and where we are. Overall, I think the board will be happy to see the progress that we have made, and we'll be continuing to look to the future to meet member needs and keep a strong MDA. There you go. Thank you. So the next person that we're going back to Dr. Hennessy to talk to us about the teledentistry work group that I gave you a little preview in. So there you go.
Yes, as one of our strategies. So resolution 744, teledentistry, already has a presence in the dental market and has disrupted some of our traditional methods of care, which leads to many questions about the quality of care and public safety. The work group reviewed the current legislation, which consisted of 4 sentences and 4 definitions. So the work group then reviewed current MDA policy, state regulations, other state policies and regulations, teledentistry opinion pieces, and current lawsuits regarding teledentistry. The work group decided regulations were necessary, and a draft legislation was created and presented to the board in December. The board adopted this with a request to go back to the work group to go back and work on the digital scanning and imaging and for impressions. After further investigation of other states, the work group has modified that draft legislation to increase the verbiage on dental scans and imaging as far as definitions and supervisions. So I think we have a really good working legislation to present to the trustees for new legislation for teledentistry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hennessy. Is there any questions on any of the highlights from our February board agenda? I will give a few minutes if people are typing in any questions on the diversity in dentistry, the component work group report, faculty awards, the marketing proposal for dental assisting, MVA App, the update for the nominating committee, strategic planning, and the teledentistry work group report.
Dr. Margaret?
Yes?
If I may, just a clarification on the component work group. Everything that Dr. Gorecki said was perfectly clear, and I just wanted to mention that the report had indicated that there was a possibility that we would be able to devote one full-time equivalent to component relations without adding headcount, which means that although the numbers he was citing would be devoted to component relations, it's not on top of our existing budget. And indeed, we will be able, if the board approves it, to convert a current position that is open to do this instead. So hopefully that will make the discussion a little bit easier for the board to have. So thought I would clarify that in case we had any people who were concerned about the budget and wondering about it.
Thank you, Ms. Burgess, for the update. I am not seeing anyone with questions, and I don't see anyone with raised hands. So this will conclude our virtual trustee forum for Thursday, February 20th, 2020. Thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you at the next board meeting or at the MVA annual session on April 29th through May 2nd. Thank you.